Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thank you for watching, listening, however you are taking in the episode of Maximize Monday that you are consuming. We appreciate you taking some time out of the start of your week to join us and discuss what's going on in our world this week. As you can see, a new guest. I have Lauren with me, who is a transition educator, moved into curriculum and instructional development. So very excited to have you talk about, what you did, how you got to where you are, and share some insight for others who are looking to make the same journey that you successfully made.
Awesome. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So if you've watched the show, we typically will start off by discussing what we have going on the week ahead. So a lot of like sports stuff for me this week. Surprise, surprise, right? So first thing, if you're watching, listening Monday, depending on when Monday night is Phillies game for me, I actually have Phillies bookending my week. So Monday and Sunday, I will be at Citizens Bank to take in Phillies games. Fingers crossed they win them both. If they split, that's fine. If they lose them both, I've had a good run. So we will see, but that is something I typically look forward to, especially as the weather is not going to be as blisteringly hot this coming week as it has been here in central PA. So finally was able to like wear a long sleeve shirt outside the other day. That hasn't happened since like June. So we're finally starting to get closer to like the fall things. Pumpkin spice is starting to pop up here and there. So it will soon be that time of year, and I love that time of year. So looking forward to that as well. And the other thing motivating me this week ahead, so it's motivating me and it's not. So my wife is still in the classroom. She is a high school history teacher, and my daughter is in pre-K right now. So this coming week is the first week that they are back to school, both of them full time. So this will be the first week where I have like total silence aside from like my dogs barking chaotically when a package gets dropped off. But I don't know what I'm going to be doing with myself. I might miss the chaos. I might miss hearing, cars playing in the background or arguing over which episode of Paw Patrol we just watched and if we have to watch it again for the third time. But so we'll see. It'll be a little less chaotic in the background when I'm on calls starting this week for a few months now. So it's always kind of a week grace period where I get used to that. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also going to miss the extra time I get with them throughout the day, the lunch dates, the coloring book dates, all of that stuff. So a hit and miss, but either way, looking forward to it. So in terms of the goals I have set for my week ahead, I have a lot of open positions that are kind of varying in what we're looking for. As you know, I work for a company that's in manufacturing, but I hire for office positions as well. So I have a lot of moving parts, a lot of variety. So just making sure I'm looking at the different job boards that we utilize, make sure the right postings are going to the right places and making sure I'm following up with that. So I want to make sure that that is taken care of. I also have a lot of new starts happening next Monday. So the 28th, that was a popular day for a lot of people to start their careers with the company. So checking in on them, making sure that they are still set to go. They have everything they need for their first day on Monday. And the win from the week before, I typically will talk about positions that I filled, and I did fill a couple, but if you know Matt, you know wrestling is life for Matt. WrestleMania is coming to Philadelphia, and my friends and I were able to secure tickets, so we are officially going like it's a thing. That was like the big thing for the week I needed to accomplish. Beyond, what I accomplished at work was just in the back of my mind, like we got to get these tickets, and we did. So that's the win. Looking forward to that. So that's what's going on in my world this week. Lauren, what do you have going on your end?
So the things that motivated me this week were definitely a little bit different than yours. Mine, I have to shout out Diet Coke first because it keeps me caffeinated, and I drink a lot of like caffeinated water during the day. And so I've been really like trying to focus on making sure that I'm drinking water but getting caffeine. Some people say that doesn't count, but I mean, whatever, it counts for me.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing is I just finished this book called Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, and that has majorly been influencing and motivating me this week just to be more cognizant of the way I show up in my interactions with people at work and in my real life too. So that has been super helpful to me. And then similarly to you, I also have had a lot of back to school fun going on. I've got a fourth grader, just started fourth grade last week. They started in the middle of the week. So we've been doing all the back to school craziness. And I have had a quiet house for the past few days, which has been really, really nice. And so Yeah, that's been great. But just all the excitement. I serve on the PTA board of my son's school. So just kind of that's a new role for me. So digging into that and just getting ready, for all the fun events that we're going to do. So
Yeah.
those have all been kind of keeping me going and keeping me excited this week. And then as far as like my goals for next week, I'm continuing with my season of focusing on myself, making sure I'm meeting my own needs during my workday because I work remotely too, and I really struggle with self-imposed structure and things like that. So like reminding myself to take breaks and drink enough water and moving around, things like that. So those are my big goals for next week is making sure I'm going on a walk with my girlfriends every morning, making sure I'm taking those necessary like brain and water breaks.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is a constant struggle. So it's always my goal.
Yeah, definitely. That you don't have a bell to remind you to do those things anymore.
I put sticky notes all around my computer. Like I have a sticky note library all around everywhere.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, the reason we connected and I invited you to be on the show and you agreed was to kind of talk about that your move out of the classroom. So you taught Spanish for some time, and so now you are focusing more on curriculum instructional development. So for you, and I know a lot of people that I talk to who are transitioning out of the classroom, they need to make a change, they want to make a change, but at the same time, they want to keep, their finger on the pulse of education. You want to stay connected to that, what you enjoyed about it, what you love about being a teacher, and find out other ways that you can pursue that. So how did that search go for you? Was curriculum instructional development kind of at the forefront when you started the transition out, or was that something through a lot of research that you came to find this is probably the right fit for me?
Well, so I did what a lot of people encourage transitioning teachers to do, which at the time I didn't know. I just kind of naturally did it. But I did that thing where I just sort of sat down and like made a list of all the different things that I really, really love about teaching and the things I think I'm pretty good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kind of decided from there what I was going to look for. I will say at the time that I actually transitioned, I was trying to transition out of the classroom, but not education per se.
Mm-hmm.
So I did prepare a resume that was, like outside of education friendly that had kind of some of those terms translated and different things like that. But it wasn't actually my main focus when I was trying to transition out. I was really kind of hoping to stay more in the world language realm and do like instructional coaching full time for world languages. There's some districts. I live in North Texas and there's quite a few districts that are starting to add those positions. And so I was, really looking forward to doing something like that or working in a central admin position that was around either professional development, world languages, any of those things that really just kind of are my edge jams. And
Right.
so that's kind of where I was headed. And then um, it just worked out that I found a job outside of education before I could even do my interviews for the different roles that I was looking at within education.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a little strange how that ended up working out. It seems kind of counterintuitive, like you would think it would happen the other way around, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was looking early in the semester, so I think that's why too, was the timing part of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of the questions that I get that I'm sure you get from other people that are transitioning into a new role is focusing on the job search itself. So the steps you took. So for that overall process in terms of the resume, any tweaking that you might have done, interview prep, because interviewing for a position outside of the classroom is entirely different from preparing for an interview where you're making presentations and going in front of boards and things like that. So what were some of the steps that you took when it came to getting yourself ready for that? And of course, the imposter syndrome question, was that something that popped up for you? How did you battle that if you had to?
Well, so I would say that pretty much what I did was I made that list. I looked for jobs that kind of aligned to that. And then I looked at my resume and made a duplicate copy. So for me personally, since I was um, open to like ed tech type jobs and things like that. Um, but I was still super early on in my search. I made two versions. So I had like an ed resume and a non-ed resume.
Mhm.
But truthfully, I didn't know as much then as I know now. And so
Yeah.
my non-ed resume looks very different now than it did even when I transitioned, because I've learned a ton
Mhm.
just from social media, from LinkedIn and other, connections that I have. I love my job and I'm not trying to leave, but as I learn new things, I keep my resume and all of that up to date so that I'm never in a position to scramble should
Sure.
something come up. So I did do a lot of the resume translation, like they talk about, like translating terms from education to corporate. I
Mhm.
did some of that. Um, but again, I was a little bit more focused on my education realm because I'm just so into instruction, and designing instruction and backward design and um, different things like that. And so I really wanted a job where I could do all of the things that I love and um, but still impact people in education. And
Yeah.
so I'm really, really lucky that I found the job that I did. And I have to admit, I probably didn't interview um like I didn't change my interview approach as much as I maybe would now. But
Okay.
at the time, I knew for a fact that the ed job that I was looking, or the ed tech job that I had applied for, was looking for someone who had come right out of the classroom. So I was hesitant to like change too much
Mhm.
because they wanted someone with that strong educator background. So I wanted that to shine through, but at the same time show them that like I could handle a corporate environment.
Gotcha.
So I will say I probably stuck way closer to my education roots for that interview, which ended up serving me well, but it probably isn't like advice I would give to
Sure.
people in general.
Right, understood. So now that you've made the transition, and one of the things I'd like to ask anyone who's transitioned from the classroom into something new when they join me for this is to, to give that glimmer of hope to people that are in their own search. So now that you've made the transition, you're in this new role. What are some of the things that you enjoy most about it? And also, what skills did you develop as an educator that you have now found made this transition a little easier for you because you were already prepared to face this aspect of the job that you're now doing?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with that second question first because my answer is slightly more involved. But
What?
the last 2 to 3 years that I was teaching, I had changed districts, and I went to a district that was very technology focused, and the one that I had come from wasn't.
Yeah.
So I'd say that the biggest like upskilling I did, um, kind of without meaning to even, was just through changing districts and becoming a lot more proficient with different like educational technologies. I knew more about the different options that were out there. I used more uh, different apps and like sauce services and as a service. I used a bunch of different products like that way more in my last few years of teaching than I had previously.
Okay.
And so that really helped a lot, just kind of being aware of what was out there and what the different like ed tools were, how they were used, and then being very intentional about incorporating those in my instruction. I am a person who's all about engagement. I am not like a sit and get type of girl. And as a learner or as a presenter. And so I also did a lot of incorporation of those tech tools that I was learning as a teacher into any presentation opportunities that I had available to me. And I also really tried to increase those because I wanted more presentation experience. So I started applying to present at a bunch of different conferences and volunteering to do a lot of presentation and training for my schools that I worked at. So I I would say that all of that really helped me in my transition, particularly the presenting piece, because even though it wasn't part of my original job description in the job that I got when I transitioned out of the classroom, I ended up doing that virtually a lot, like hosting different trainings and things like that. And so teaching online during COVID helped with that too. So yeah, those are all different things that I did. And I also, the other piece that I usually encourage people who want to get into curriculum design is get yourself published. I
Right.
didn't do anything fancy, but I definitely focused on getting myself published on some online like journal publications for teachers. And so that's really, it's a good way to get your name out there. But even beyond that, when you do that, those websites typically have a team of people that are working on editing that content. And
Mhm.
so I got to work with some leading people in my field that I never thought I would get to meet. And they were editing my writing, and I was learning through that process. And so that was extremely helpful. And then also just being a part of curriculum writing at my district level and working on some other like character ed curriculum writing projects, which is now what I do, which I had no idea a few years ago that that was what I would end up doing. So all of those things really helped a lot. And I recommend, I mean, teachers are always so busy and there's always so much on your plate. But if you can, what I kind of had to do was I had to tell myself, like, okay, these last few years, I'm focusing on me. I tried to transition in 2017, didn't work, not even a little. So, what can I do in these last few years of teaching to focus on growing myself as a professional so that I can eventually get out of the classroom? So, that was really sort of like my mental space,
Mhm.
um, which helped me a lot. And then, like I said, I made a bunch of decisions based on what I thought would get me there. So, networking, joining boards of different, or professional organizations in my state, all of that stuff. So it all helped.
Yeah, that's very insightful and key advice that I think a lot of people don't really think to do, and so that's perfect, and I appreciate you sharing that. Now you've also been very active on LinkedIn, recently, and one of the other reasons I reached out to you is I noticed a lot of the posts you were doing to encourage people who are starting or in their transition out of the classroom, including your Monday motivation posts to highlight other transitioning educators as well. So how important was that for you now that you have made the transition yourself to kind of be that resource for other people, not just with advice, but to give them that push, give them that boost like you're trying to do now through LinkedIn?
Yeah, so the first thing that I always say when I'm asked about this is it is possible to be on both sides of the coin,
Mhm.
to want to help people who are currently still in the classroom and give them hope and resources and you know just celebrate them and love on them, and at the same time want to help people who want to transition out. So I think that's like one of the things that I face a lot is people are like, how can you do your job, which is literally creating resources for teachers, and then at the same time be so open about your transitioning journey and willing to help others transition out of the classroom.
Right.
And my answer to that is like, life is complicated, like emotions are complicated. I have so much love for education, and obviously, like, I have a child, I don't want all of his teachers leave the
Right.
classroom or anything
Yeah.
like that. But I think that it is so important that people feel fulfilled and mentally healthy in their workspace. And unfortunately, like, public education is just not doing that for a lot of people right now. And so I want to do the work that I do for my day job and all the ways, like, and through like my PTA service and all the ways I can help current teachers. But it's really important to me that if someone is feeling like, I just don't think I can do this anymore, I think I need to leave the classroom for my mental health, I just want people to know that they're not alone in that. And
Right.
that there are so many, like, transitioning teachers are not by default angry or hateful or bitter. There's so many of us that it was heart wrenching to make the decision to leave the classroom. And it was really hard. And I grappled with it for a few years before I actually did it. And so I think that just getting that more positive spin on the message of like, don't leave, like, I'm not talking about leaving education because education sucks or anything
Right.
like that. It's important to validate the feelings of the teachers that are feeling so downtrodden and so disrespected and so undervalued. And and I think that most schools are doing the best they can, and districts and all that. I think everyone is really trying, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for your mental health. And if that's leaving the classroom and seeking other opportunities, I mean, I always want to be the kind of person that pays it forward. And there were so many people that helped me in my transition. And I just want to be that resource for other people, whether I know them or not.
Right.
So am totally willing to give people advice in my DMs and LinkedIn, or on my TikTok. Like the first thing that I did when I transitioned, or one of the first things I did, was I made a TikTok to kind of just like talk about my transition and air some things out, like how I was feeling and what I was going through, because I wanted to relate to people. And um it was really helpful for me. My therapist actually suggested it.
Nice.
She was like, if you're struggling with deconstructing leaving education, like, why don't you try sharing your story? And
Yeah.
so that's exactly what I'm trying to do with my TikTok and also with my LinkedIn. But, just doing it in as positive as a way of possible, and really getting out there to people that, like, their feelings and emotions are valid. And if they're feeling all those things and they want to transition, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So last question I'll have for you, and it's the one I ask everyone that comes on, regardless of the position they're in and where they got to, because everyone's gone through a job search at some point in your career, whether you were just starting out of college or it's been years and you've done it again recently, but that key piece of advice. So whether it was advice that you received during your own search that you felt was invaluable to get to where you are, or a piece of advice that you try to give to anyone that comes to you, but what is that key piece of advice that you like to pass on to anyone that is in their current job search?
It's probably very cliche, but just to be your most authentic self. To be your most authentic self in the way you present yourself through your resume, and also the way you present yourself through interviews, but even just in your mentality toward your job search. I think one mistake that so many people make is they just try to, like, that whole mentality of like throwing everything up against the wall to see what sticks when they're searching for a job,
Mhm.
rather than searching for very particular, narrow niches that they think they'll fit into. And so, part of being my authentic self was finding my niche. Like, where do I fit in all of this? And how can I be a good fit in this company, even within this role? And part of that too is just knowing that, regardless of what's in the job description, you can make roles your own. And I think voicing how you plan to do that or would like to do that in interviews can also be really helpful and help set you apart. Like, I have all these random skills I'd like to use, so how can I do that? That was a question I asked in interviews was, hey, I've got some graphic design and abilities, and I'm bilingual, and I can do this and that. Like, how can I work these into this job description to make it my own?
Right.
Here's a couple of ideas I have. And I would share that. And then I would pose that as a question to the interviewer too. So um, I think that, yeah, just authenticity is my biggest piece of advice.
Absolutely. Well, Lauren, I appreciate so much you taking some time out of your day to join me and give the advice and insight that you did. I know there's a lot of people that are still on their journey that will be very appreciative as well. So if you're listening, if you're watching, thanks so much for supporting. We hope you have a great week, and we will see you next Monday.